We're freaking here and we're freaking on time. Let me know how the sound and all of that fun stuff is. I'll give you a second to join us. I got a new streaming software, so I'm really hoping everything is better and less garbage. Sorry. And I'm also using, don't stop fucking connecting my AirPods to this. Let me know if the sound keeps fucking up. This is why I'm hesitant to use my AirPods, is the mic appears to be working the best because it's inherently closest to my face, but it always fucking connects to my phone. Even when the Bluetooth is off, it will auto turn it back on and connect. And I might sound crazy, but I'm really not. I promise you I'm not. Am I live right now? I can't tell. Hopefully I am. Normally you guys show up a little faster than this. I'm getting nervous. Oh, here it is. Oh, FemLizzie45 subscribed. Thank you for subscribing for 4 months. How do we feel about the chat as well? How are you just feeling in general? I didn't get a notification. So that's one thing I am concerned about, is that it appears, I don't like how you can always see so much of my body on this. We're just going to put that. Does that even work? No, we're just gonna, there we go. That's not the best angle, but whatever. Not sure why my color is different from everyone. Everyone's color is different when I look at it. The audio is stunning. Okay, good. I'm glad. I got a whole new setup. Talking at my first conference this weekend, Send Help and Vibes. Matt, I never get notices. So I'm not the only one that puts this in their calendar. So that's one thing, is on my old streaming software, it said like, what do you want the go live notification to say? And on this one, it doesn't say that. So I don't know if it's just like auto-filling. Couldn't go live now. Please try again later. Shut the fuck up. I don't know if it's just like auto-filling the title or what's happening with it. I never get notifications. I just check at 7:30 and refresh incessantly. I go to vacation every time. The last couple have been Waco 2 title. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Maybe it'll just be in Waco 2 forever. Hi. Oh, there's everybody. I think maybe the viewership on this is not accurate because the chat and viewers is like really not matching to me. Um, that's fine though. I can always look at it on my phone. Oh, you got the notification. Let me try and get off the Wi-Fi maybe. I'm also using an Ethernet cable now. Hmm? Oh, works off the Wi-Fi. Good thing I have that unlimited data. Chat looks different. Yes. So it is not Waco. No, we're talking about Industrialization of America. We talked about Waco last week, and Waco is on YouTube. Waco part 1 and 2 is on YouTube. So I know I always say this and we never do it, and today will probably be the same, but I'm like really actually going to try. I need to get started because we have literally so much to talk about. There's 65 slides. I really hope that Mr. Responsible is not listening right now. But there's 65 slides, which is like, you like Mr. Dagger, we've done 80 slides. Like Kris Jenner was almost 90 slides. Many of these have like 10 photos in one slide. So it's going to be a lot. Grocery Store Pete resubscribed for 8 months. Oh my God, thank you. Was the stream on a different day last week? No, it wasn't, but I did stream for like 10 minutes on Monday just to test out this new software, just because I didn't want to like be caught ass out with a topic I was so excited about. Mr. Responsible is such a good nickname for him. I cannot claim that. I did not come up with that. Um, oh wait, can I collapse this? Yeah. I did not come up with that. Someone did on my comment section. A Walmart consolidation. Mr. Responsible, where? Oh, fuck, I keep losing my place. Okay, let me just start. So I am so fucking excited to talk about this because this is like, to me, when I was a kid and I learned it, I was like, who the fuck cares? And then when I learned it as an adult, I was like, wait, this is everything. Like, this is everything. Also, can you guys see the slide okay? Because for me, it is the grainiest thing I can see literally on planet Earth. But my screen where I'm looking at it is also like this big. It's like less than the size of my phone. So I think it's just because it's condensed weird. Okay, perfect. That's what I was like hoping, praying, and thriving for. But I don't know. I just don't like looking at it. So let me just put it away. Let me get my screen better. Okay. So, how I feel talking about the second industrial revolution on Twitch because I didn't think anyone would want to talk about this, but then the promo video like Loki kind of popped off, and I was like, okay, people want to fucking talk about this, and it was y'all's idea. It was y'all's ideas last week. So we're kind of talking about two things at one time, kind of like the second industrial revolution and also the Gilded Age. So the second industrial revolution is also known as the technological revolution was a phase of rapid scientific discovery, standardization, and mass production industrialization from the late 19th century to early 20th century. So I'm going to explain centuries to you because I only started to understand it like maybe 45 minutes ago. Is my computer charging? Okay. So I maybe started to understand centuries about 45 minutes ago. That's a lie. It was like 6 months ago. But basically, the number that it is the hundreds, but like one backwards. So like the 19th century is the 1800s. It's like because the zero in math, I don't know. I'm sure if I like thought about it hard enough and looked it up, I could explain it to you. But I've never understood it in my life. People are like, oh, because of the zero, and it makes no fucking sense to me. But the way that it makes sense to me is it's like that's the number, but one backwards. Like how we're in the 21st century. Exactly. Is this something other people have struggled with, or am I just like a fucking idiot? Like, does anyone else have that problem? But anyway, from 1865 is important because that's the year the Civil War ended. So obviously, when you're like doing a civil war, you're not going to be like, oh, let's make a bunch of technological innovations. You're doing a war. Like, you have fucked up priorities. So obviously, that's just the situation. So after the Civil War, up to the 1890s, and we're really going to talk about like 1870s to like 19 teens is what we're talking about today. The United States enjoyed the Gilded Age, an unprecedented surge in industrialization and entrepreneurship, but at a terrible cost for the working classes. And next week, we're going to talk about how the working classes were like, fuck this fucking bullshit. You can't treat me like this. And then they got some rights a little bit, and now we're losing them. Not to like depress you, but we are. So yeah, very good topic. I'm very, very excited. When you're 0 months to 12 months, you're not 1 year old, but it's your first year of life. Christianity is the baby. Year 0001 would be the first century. I don't want to talk about this. It's confusing. It stresses me out and I don't want to talk about it. I know I brought it up, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to give you, oh, I forgot I had a story I wanted to tell you. So I was talking to my boyfriend about this last night because I was telling him how excited I was to do this stream because this is such a fun time period. And I was like, he was like, oh, who was president during this time? And I was like, you know what? I actually have no fucking idea. And that's one thing in history that I just never know. I never know who's president other than like the Great Depression and FDR. Like, and then sometimes with wars, I remember who the president was if they like did some fuck shit. But to me, it's so funny that like when we're right now times, like in present day, we're like the fucking president. Like we put so much stock into it. But then when you look back on history, we're looking at this as like a 40-year chunk and like we're like, whatever. So that just goes to say like no matter who the president is, fucking live your life, man, because you could be more famous than the president. There's like a lot more celebrities than there are past presidents. You know what I mean? Like there's way more famous people than there have to be presidents. So your chances of fame, like you easily could be more famous than a president. There's so many presidents that if they could time travel, they could walk past me on the street and I would not know a fucking thing. And maybe I should be ashamed to say that. I'm not. I actually, any employers out there, this was a joke. Oh, I don't understand people who can see a photo of dead guys and know their names. I remember when I took AP US history in 11th grade, part of our summer work was to memorize all of the presidents, the year they got elected, their political party, and who they ran against, and then like how many terms they served how many terms they were given. And I remember I looked at that assignment and I was like, that's awesome, but I like physically can't do that. Like, unfortunately, my brain is not gonna do that. Like, my brain will not memorize those people, and I am not even gonna waste my time and try because I just know it's not going to stick. So who the fuck cares? And then all of my friends were like stressing the fuck out over it and they were doing all these little flashcards and whatever. And I was like, you know what? I really like I'm just not, I can't. Like, I'm not going to lose sleep over it because I know no matter how hard I try, I literally can't do it. And then on the first day of school, I asked the teacher, I was like, hey, I was studying like all the presidents and stuff, and I'm trying to remember it, but I was just wondering, like, in what format are we going to be tested on that? Like, am I going to need to write about it? This is also a free tip for you, for the people in school. I was like, am I going to be asked to write about it, or is it going to be like a multiple choice, like a matching thing? I just want to make sure I'm like studying in the most effective way. And he was like, oh no, you're not going to have a test on that. I just wanted you guys to know that so that when I like am referencing time periods, you would just know it and we wouldn't have to talk about it because you already know it. I just like wanted you to have the timeline in your head. And I was like, no, that's perfect because I'm not going to do anything. And I felt so righteous in my choice. And everyone was so fucking mad. And everyone was like, you should give us a test. And I was like, I am going to literally take you into the parking lot and you're never going to see daylight again. Shut up. Like, it's not my fault that I outsmarted the system. Well, it's not like I outsmarted the system and I'm not going to be punished with getting a bad grade because you were stupid and did a wasteful assignment. Like, I can spot a wasteful assignment from 30 miles away. That was me with my AP test. And also, I got a 5 on that shit. I got almost or I don't know how, like, whatever. I got a 5, which is the highest score you can get on the AP US history exam. And I ended the course with 107 in the class. So fucking eat me. Like, I was a kid who knew the names, not because I liked them, but because I wanted to know what idiot was in charge for the random bad shit. Yeah. Every time you say Walmart or parking lot, it feels like you're watching a movie and they say the title of the dialogue. I got it too. That's tough. Also, it depends when you took it. I lucked the fuck out because it used to be very much like who was the president. We only care about like the fucking first Congress, the Declaration of Independence, like all that boring shit that no one gives a shit about. It used to be very that. And then my class was actually not like my class, like the class I was in, but like the students that took this course in the 2014 to 15 school year. That was the first year that they had like I don't want to call it a woke curriculum because that's not what it is. They just like included a lot more about the civil rights movement and they changed the test a lot to make it much more writing based. So like that was like very in my favor. Like I'm much better at like writing than I am memorization and they included they went way more document and cartoon heavy and then they tried to do like a lot more like wide perspective and stuff. And so I feel like if I had taken the first test, I would have flunked that shit. But because like the part of history that's interesting to me is that I've just been talking. I said I was going to get started and I've just been talking. But anyway, the part of history that's interesting to me is when you get to look at something and learn something and it explains your world to you. Like I was telling my boyfriend about this the other night. There's like this train track kind of near where we live and it's like there's a history of the city of it split up a community. It was a black community. It was split up like same story in every city. But I was saying I was like the when I drive past that, I like feel the history of that and I know everything that's there. So I hate learning about shit that's like not from the perspective of the people that experienced it. Like I don't give a fuck what they wrote down in like the official church documents because that's fucking biased. Like I want to read a fucking diary entry. And I remember when I was in elementary school, one of the first things that I was like, I fucking love history is I read a diary entry of a kid from like World War II. And I was like, damn, like they're literally there. Like this, like it's like I'm having a conversation with them. So that's why when I'm learning about like the first Congress, I'm like, shut the fuck up. Who cares? Like, oh, you little official documents where you fucking argued for 15 hours over what to say and we'll never know what you actually said. Yeah. Bye. Don't care. Funny of you to assume we don't come here to also just hear you talk. I'm I'm about to start teaching the Black Power movement. That's awesome, a dispensary parking lot. Me when I was obsessed with the Dear America books. I love firsthand accounts from regular ass people. Like that is what it is about. My AP test was about manifest destiny. I was set up by the college board. I got a 5, but college only I got a 4, but my college only accepted a 5 rip. So what's funny is I had like a in my major you had to have a primary concentration and a secondary concentration and my secondary one was history, but I didn't have to take any US history classes in college because I got a 5 on the AP US history exam. So they gave me 2 credits instead of 1. And I was like, y'all's standards is in the gutter. That's why people like, you went to FSU? I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, in college, I like, sorry to flex on you right now if school is hard for you, but like, I got straight A's in college and I probably studied maybe an hour and a half a week, if that. Like, that's honestly being ambitious. So when people are like, oh my God, it's so hard, I'm like, no, you're just dumb. Like, I'm so sorry that you experienced that and you're failing. Like, that, I really don't get it. And that's on FSU sociology. Quarter life crisis was there. Like, oh my God, I'm studying so hard and I'm still failing. And I was like, the test was literally word for word what was on the slide in class that we got on. Like, we get to keep the slides, and then the slide was up there for a while, and some people wrote it down. And also, we had a whole conversation about it, and it was multiple choice. So, like, that's the one thing. I did have to do work. Like, I wasn't studying, but like I would get assigned papers and write them. But like I would usually get A's on them and just turn in my first draft. They would give me an assignment, and then I would just do what they told me to do. I don't know. I did sociology at UF, and it wasn't much different. Like, and that's the crazy thing is I went out of my way to take classes with harder professors because I knew that it was an easy major, and I was like, but I like want to fucking learn shit. So on Rate My Professor, when people would be like, "This was a hard class," that never deterred me. And I don't know what's wrong with there's like no brain cells there. Like the professors were all really smart. They knew we were dumb. Like I want to be really clear about that. Like the professors there were very good. Like I learned a lot from them, but they knew our asses were dumb. Not me. Y'all rest easy. But I'd rather be stressed than bored. No, I was happy to be bored. And I was never bored because we were talking about things that were fascinating to me. So maybe that's it. It's like it was just so fascinating to me. And I was learning so much, but the way they were testing us was not rigorous. Like it was just a verbatim what we talked about. She's scared an FSU prof is here. They're always around. But yeah, like it was like because a lot of colleges like they give you the material and then what's on the test is like way fucking harder. My experience, like we'd talk about it in class, I was like, this is crazy, this is interesting, I'm learning so much. And then they would be like, what did we talk about? And if I could just be like, this is what we talked about and this is what I thought about it, they'd be like, great, that's an A. ADHD brains love novelty. So as long as it's interesting, I'm set. Exactly. Okay. So let's fucking talk about what we said we were going to talk about. What are the vibes of the time period? The Civil War ended in 1865. Slavery had been abolished, but the effects were obviously still very, very, very strong. And I just want to give you context of like when the US became a whole giant baby. And in 1900, we had 45 states, the last edition being Utah in 1896. Oklahoma, Arizona, and New Mexico joined in 1912, completing the lower 48. So we're definitely like during this time period, we are not the United States that you and I know today with those existing borders, but like we do pretty much have control of the entire continent, like not the whole continent, but like coast to coast. Like we had California by this point, like we had been everywhere. It was our shit. We had done terrible things to the Native Americans. That's where we are in history. So, according to the 1900 census, the population of the United States was 76 million. Today, it's 33 331.9 million. I don't know why I couldn't say that. And nearly 14% of the population was born outside the US. 1900 average salary was $449. In 2022 money, that would be $16,222. Minimum wage did not exist at this time. I always like to give minimum wage as like a time parameter, but they did not have one. So the minimum wage was you pay us to work. Also for those of you on TikTok live right now, if you want to come to Twitch, there's like pictures and all that stuff and yay. It's first link in the link tree. So if this is the second industrial revolution, when the fuck was the first? The first industrial revolution was more of like a Great Britain thing. The US was definitely like a part of it. Like we were participating, but we were not leading because we were still kind of a baby country, you know? So the industrial revolution is when the transition came to the new manufacturing processes. So they started having from going like handmade to using machines. So think like it's not a factory, it's not an automatic like the machine makes it for you. It's a person operating the machine. So it's going from like hand stitching to like a sewing machine. That's not a literal example, but just to give you that. I think a sewing machine was invented before this. But anyway, so it's like we start to have machines to make things easier, but the machines are not doing the work. Like if the person steps away, the machine's not going to keep going. It's not powered by anything other than the human using it. So that's the first industrial revolution. And again, Europe was kind of leading the way on that one, and the US was like participating, but was like not leading. So this is a fucking fascinating to me. People used to work from home. If your boss tells you that people did not care about working from home until COVID, fucking show them this video right now. Okay, this is what we're about to talk about. So, the emergence of capitalism in Britain and elsewhere in the 1600s to the mid 19th century did not take place primarily in factories, but in people's houses. Workers made everything from dresses to shoes to matchboxes in their kitchens or bedrooms. So they would give them the materials, they would go home and make the stuff, and then like once a week or whatever, they would bring the stuff and be like, here is the stuff. No skipping this time. Yeah, we just got a new streaming platform and an Ethernet cable. We're fucking upgraded. So where was I? Where was I? Prior to 1800, oh wait, here we are. So, the rise of the factory system during the Industrial Revolution gave to the rise of one of the most dramatic changes in the organization of work. Prior to 1800, workers in manufacturing predominantly worked from home on their own time. Throughout the 19th century, factories became the dominant organizational form. Work was moved from homes to centralized plants, and under the factory system, it became very closely regulated. According to one estimate for America, using official data, in the early 1800s, more than 40% of the total workforce labored from home. Isn't that crazy? Oh, yeah, there's a link for Skillshare. I don't know why she's sending that. I never told her to do that, but whatever, she's sending it. Um, that's fine. Sign up. Give me some more little bonus things. But anyway, I just think that that is fucking crazy that we used to work from home. I feel like y'all really are not like matching my energy on it. People work better when they aren't on a microscope. Yes, new platform. I'll show them a dramatic change. Oh my God, the TikTok live is like very, very aggressive. The only math I'm doing, work from home is clutch. It is very, very clutch. I want to leave my house to go to uni and it makes me want to work remote until retirement. I want to love to work remote. I can't decide if I hate working from home just because I hate my job or if I hate having my work life bleed into my home life. I don't know. Because I every time I'm working from home, I'm like, this is fucking miserable. And I think it's just because I'm working. And it's also like harder for me to come down. Like I close my laptop, but I like still feel stressed out and like I still just want to open it and keep working. Fuck commuting. That's the part for me. That is the part for me. I fucking hate commuting. You hate your job? Yeah. Sorry. I get paid a lot better than when I was a teacher, and it's definitely a healthier work environment than my old school was. But yeah, doesn't everyone? Everyone does kind of hate their job. I'm getting paid to work and watch the stream at home right now. I like hybrid since I was full work from home during COVID. I was a hermit. I work at the apartment I live, and I feel like I never get a break. I do a 15-minute walk after my workday as my. Oh, that is so fucking smart. Also, High Guard Heart, thank you for following. The only thing I don't like about this new platform is the alerts when someone subscribes, like they disappear, and on the other one they stay there. So I like it. I always try and make sure I like thank everyone who subscribes, and it's just like not a thing on here, I guess. I'm trying. I told my students I wasn't born to work, and they gave me advice on how to find a rich husband. That's honestly like so valid. Anyone that's like, oh, that's just the easy way out. Like anyone that tries to say you're a bad person for that shit, and they would never, they would, they just don't have the opportunity. Like, obviously, we know that there's like more fucking morale and working for your own, and you're not as manipulated or controlled. We know. But don't fucking look at me and tell me if you had the opportunity, you wouldn't. I think everyone is lying about that. Why is the easy way out bad? It's easy. Why wouldn't I want things to be easy? I don't remember who it was. Someone famous said they only hire lazy people because they'll always find the fastest way to do something. But anyway, moving on. We've been getting so distracted. So I wanted to show you some pictures of cities during this time period. So here's Lower Manhattan. You can see it's definitely like people are there. It's very full, but it's not skyscrapers. These buildings are not that tall. They're like what? Three, four, 5 stories max. Keep in mind, they don't have elevators, stairs. These pictures, I was getting so mad. I was like, all these fucking pictures are grainy as shit. You can't fucking see anything. Also, if you're on Twitch right, or if you're on TikTok right now, if you want to see the pictures, you have to come to Twitch. It's the first link in my link tree. Thanks. Um, I was like, these pictures are so fucking grainy. You can't see anything. This is bullshit. And then I realized that they're literally from the 1800s. Like I was actively upset about it. Like I was very, very angry about it. And then I was like, well, it is the 1800s, so I guess they're trying their best. Here's some more pictures of the streets. You can see they have these little cart buggy things. They have these little like rail car, public transportation, little vibe, lots of people walking. Also, lots of people lived above the building they worked in. There was lots of mixed use buildings. Here is another picture of a city. Here, this is important. This is a picture of the railroad map in 1870. So you can see, like, we definitely have railroads, but the majority of the land that we have, it's hard to get to via railroad. They're really only in the Northeast. I can't stop burping. Oh, and I had a soda I wanted to drink. Anyway, here's a picture of Atlanta. They don't know what street this is, but you can see it's like a city. Like, it's definitely people are living here, but it by no means is it skyscrapers. And Wisconsin's has literally not improved since. We went backwards. In a lot of ways, yeah. Like in architecturally speaking, we did. In transportation speaking, here is New York in the 1880s. You can see what's getting me is how big the sidewalks are and how big the street is. Just there's a lot of space. Here, 1880s, there's some people selling stuff on the street. And then Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I want to get my little drink. Give me like 2 seconds. I'm going to be in the room. And I have AirPods now, so I can get up and you can still hear me and everything will still be nice and clear. Isn't that phenomenal for us? Damn it, this box isn't open. I hate opening shit. Ah! No! Everything's falling. I don't know why I thought this would work. I'm going to fix it though. Everything's fixable. If you have a can-do attitude. Can you hear these like violent crashes? There we go. I'll just throw that box on the ground. Ugh. Okay. We love the chaos. That was like, I'm very out of breath. I was like squatting. Sorry, I need a second. Anyone else a victim of water talk? Oh, I don't want to talk about water talk. These are good. Look, it's the San Pellegrino lemon, but it's not sparkling water. It's like soda. I hate sparkling water and it hurts my stomach. But anyway, that is good. Okay, so why is this super rapid growth happening? Basically, the Bessemer process. The Bessemer process is a way to make steel where the steel is like strong as shit and you can make it super fast and super cheap. So because of the Bessemer process, we have all this steel. Steel is metal. So they started expanding the railroad system. And then when they started expanding the railroad system, people started making more shit to send on the railroads because it was cheaper to send stuff. And you can see then it just kind of builds on each other because then more people are using railroads, sending their stuff. Then the railroads expand. And it just like is exponential growth. And then another important note, in 1879, American inventor Thomas Edison was finally able to produce reliable, long-lasting electric light bulb. So this is a big important thing. Most people did not have electricity in their homes. Unless you were like a gazillionaire, you were not going to have electricity in your home. But you know where you do have electricity? Your fucking job. And now you can stay there at nighttime. So instead of having to like live by the sun and live by the earth, they start being able to work very long hours and being able to work overnight. So like I know I love a light bulb, you love a light bulb, but like kind of an L for workers. And imagine not having it at your house. You get home and it's just dark as shit. That's bullshit. That is such bullshit. So the main causes of the second industrial revolution were natural resources, abundant labor supply, strong, I hate how it says strong government policy, new sources of power, railroads, and American inventors and inventions. So what caused the second industrial revolution? We already kind of talked about that. Also, we're going to talk more about this later, but lots of people needed jobs. There was so many people willing to work. Like, you know how right now it's like nobody wants to work anymore. Back then, everybody wanted to work because the Civil War had just ended and slavery had been abolished. So obviously, if you're a newly freed slave and the South is like super racist and you hear that factories are hiring in the North, you're like, well, I should leave here and go get a job there. So that happened a lot. Oh my God, Wags, thank you for gifting so many subscriptions. That is so nice, Wag00. If they had phones, they'd never want to work either. No, but it was also so people that had recently like been freed from slavery, and then there were a lot of immigrants coming during this time as well. So again, it's also like a self-fulfilling loop because as people are taking these jobs, they're going and telling and writing letters to their families and friends and whatever, and then even more people start coming to take their jobs. There was a massive exodus of Black people from the South during this time period because of like the KKK and the violent racism. And then in the North, the racism was like slightly less and slightly less violent, and there was like slightly more economic opportunity. So it was just like objectively a wise decision that a lot of people made. So, abundance of resources. So, this one you might be like, I thought the coal was in the earth. Like, I thought we can't make more of it. It's how much they're getting out and realizing that they have a shit ton of it. They're basically discovering everywhere that it is and harvesting it. So, you can see it's going up, especially in the 1880s. Things start to get exponential and going up very, very quickly. Oh my God, so many people are following. Katrina092, thank you for following. Great Migration. Yes, the Great Migration lasted a very long time. And now we're kind of having like I don't want to call it a reversed Great Migration, just like a different thing is happening where a lot of people are now leaving major cities and moving to rural areas because of the cost of living, which I might be doing. Spoiler alert. Everything's expensive. It's fine. I'll tell you about it later. So, international steel production. The US was ideal for steel production because it has coal, iron, and railroads. Fucking look at how much steel, the green. Okay, this is a side passion of mine. I fucking love showing people how to interpret graphs because I think graphs do the most to tell you about history and the Great Evacuation. I think graphs do the most to tell you about history, and a lot of people are really intimidated by graphs because they think that it's math, and it is kind of math, but it's more just like pictures than it is math. So just like I fucking love graphs, and I think everyone should get excited about graphs, is what I just want to tell you right now. So the green is 1880. So if you look, Germany, France, Great Britain, Russia, and the US in 1880, we're producing like a little bit of steel. Great Britain and the US are mainly producing the steel. And then the yellow is 1914. So if you can see, the US is producing a fucking shit ton of steel. To be exact, 35 million tons of steel. And then Great Britain and Germany's also producing a lot. France and Russia are kind of in their flop era, but you know, whatever. So yeah, lots and lots of steel. And you know, steel makes buildings, steel makes railroads, steel makes machines. Like the more steel we produce, the more shit we use to produce other shit. And then the more money we have to make more steel. And it's just like capitalism is just like popping the fuck off. Like I literally think capitalists were just like orgasming 25/8 at this time. So, patents. This is another important thing. The US government began issuing patents. A patent is basically a document saying that you own your idea, whether it's a product, a machine, invention, whatever, and that no one else is allowed to create or sell that for a certain time period. And when I say time period, a patent is usually not like 5 years, 10 years, it's like 100 years. It's like lifetime type of vibes. It's so hard to conceptualize how much steel that is. I know, right? I love patents. I work in patents and I've been brainwashed. No, I love patents as an idea. Like patents, that's true. You should have your idea protected. You should have your invention protected. But obviously when they passed this, well, created this system, everyone was like, let me start inventing shit. And then everyone started inventing shit, which is dope. That's how we got shit like electricity and phones and stuff that I use every day. Um, so also railroads are expanding. We already kind of talked about this, but in being that railroads expanded, but specifically in 1862 during the Civil War, Congress passed legislation to build a transcontinental railroad. Trans means across, like the word trans, like the root word just means across. Continental means like the United States. So transcontinental means across the continent. Also, you can tell, like I have taught this probably over 20 times. I use some of my slides that I used to use with my students because I would have to teach this to 6 classes for 3 years, so 18 times. So like that's why like I'm on my shit right now. Like look at me, look at me. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. This is one of my favorite lessons. You all that normally I would like split it differently and it'd be like very chunked and whatever. No, like I'm literally having flashbacks. I feel like I'm Mr. Daxter right now. Y'all are getting a much better version because I get to like curse and give you my opinion and kind of like get into shit and like whatever. Also, we don't have to talk about any of the boring shit that I don't care about. Like we're not going to talk super in depth about like some finance stuff that the kids are supposed to know, but it's boring and doesn't, it's irrelevant basically. So I picked the best parts and then got a bunch of my own opinions and put it all together. So anyway, we're in our railroad era. They passed this legislation to build a railroad connecting the new state of California to the industrialized North. After the war was over, government attention could be turned to this monumental engineering task and rebuilding tasks because in some parts they had like shitty railroads. So they were like, let's just connect everything together rather than starting from scratch, you know? Um, Working from both west and east, the railroad was completed in May 1869, and a ceremonial golden spike was driven into the earth. In addition to the 16,000 to 48,000 subsidy per mile, the federal government gave two railroad companies, Central Pacific and Union Pacific, land grants that could later be sold. So that's why when people are like, oh, fuck yeah, we're going to analyze some political cartoons. Many of them. But anyway, that's why when people say, like, oh, all of this growth happened because the government was hands off. Like, the government was very hands off. They weren't doing things. Yes, the fuck they were. Yes, the fuck they were. They were investing and paying for shit to get done. Maybe our government right now should invest in railroad transportation to maybe improve the American experience. Maybe just a thought. Just a thought that I was thinking, maybe. So here's a picture of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869. There's some crazy stories. I think like some people died. There was a crash. I don't fucking know. There's a lot of weird shit with this. Maybe we'll do a separate specific railroad stream. But like, look at this picture. Look at all their little hats. And I am willing to bet money that the men in this photo were not the ones doing the manual labor. It was a lot of actually Asian immigrants doing the manual labor. That is not a fun fact because a lot of them died and were treated very, very terribly. So it's actually a very sad fact. The original milk and corn subsidy obsession started with railroads. Imagine trying to suggest a transcontinental railroad now and getting told you're woke. Like, look at them. Okay, so the Transcontinental Railroad promoted business growth as well as long distance sales and shipping. It connected the west to the east. Prior to this completion, you had to travel by boat around the tip of South America because they didn't fucking have a Panama Canal yet either. Or do it over land, which was really expensive, dangerous, and took a long time. So basically, everything sucked until they built this railroad, and then everything was great, I guess. And then this is a kind of political cartoon, I guess, but more just symbolic. It's like San Francisco and New York shaking hands. They're so, so happy together. Look. Aw. I have to burp. I keep burping. This is nasty. And the old mic, I could mute it really easily, but the AirPods, we can't mute them. Me building the Panama Canal and getting malaria. Maybe we can do another lesson on that. Panama Canal also has awful origins. Pretty much everything that's good for business has awful origins, I've noticed. Fun fact, railroads gave us time zones. So the need for continental time zones stemmed directly from the problems of moving passengers and freights thousands of miles in the 1880s. Since human beings had begun first keeping track of time, they set their clocks to the local movement of the sun. Even in the 1880s, most towns in the US had their own local time, generally based on high noon. They had 144 different time zones. So the time went when the sun was at the highest point in the sky. As railroads began to shrink travel time between cities from days and months to mere hours, however, these local times became a scheduling nightmare. Railroad timetables in major cities listed dozens of arrival and departure times for the same train, each linked to different local time zones. Efficient rail transportation demanded a more uniform timekeeping system. Rather than turning to the federal government of the United States and Canada to create a North American system of time zones, the powerful rail companies took it upon themselves and they created their own system. And the dividing lines they adopted are still very, very close to the ones we use today. Most Canadians and Americans embraced this quickly. I can't imagine there being a ton of opposition to this. Oh my God, Nunez Sal 97, thank you for following. But honestly, I feel like if you tried to do this today, people would be like, you're taking away our local freedoms. You are taking away our right to set our clocks. It is going to be midnight in the middle of the day when the sun is shining here because that is our God-given right. Oh, an Aldi quarter, it's your birthday? Oh, happy birthday. I'm sorry you're sick. Woke clocks. Like, people would have so much opposition to this. That's one thing is that when you are being violently oppressed at work, and I mean violently, truly, a lot of people died. When you're being violently oppressed at work and you are starving, you don't have time for like petty political drama, which I'm not saying is good or bad. It's just an observation. You know what? Like, if you are worried your arm is going to get cut off at work and you're working 18 hours a day, like, you're not going to be like, oh, what are they teaching in the third grade where I don't have a kid? Like, you don't have time to worry about that. So, I don't know. I'm not saying it's a solution. I'm just saying it's like, it's something to think about as we think of a solution. Everyone say happy birthday to the Aldi quarter. Thanks. That's your assignment. Snoozy G33 has followed. Thank you. Everyone say happy birthday. So anyway, here is the railroads now. So remember that first picture I showed you? There were like barely any, and then this is the railroads. I don't remember what year this is. I think it's like the early 1900s. But you can see they have the standard time now. They have a lot more railroads. Things are popping off. So, another thing that came up because of now that we have all of this trade going on is long distance communication. First one is the telegraph. The telegraph is with all the little taps. Is this your class? Fuck yeah, it is. But the link on Twitch is better because you can see all the pictures and my screen share, and like there's way more people over there. But if you're on TikTok, I still love you. You're just not getting the entire experience. So anyway, it worked by little taps. It was pretty fast. It only took a couple minutes. So instead of like before, the fastest way to get a message was the Pony Express, where you would pay a guy on a pony to deliver your message like point A to point B. And that would even take a couple of days, even a week to go across the country. Um, Even Moobot got in on it. Yeah, I don't know. Moobot works differently with this new one. She's supposed to be turned off, but I don't know. I'm kind of into her, and it's a performance-based link. So even though they're not sponsoring today, I'll leave it there. Where was I? So yeah, they transmit electrical signals. This is not very practical for like chit chatting, but it is practical for business use because you're not going to do these little taps for each letter to be like, hey, how are you? I kind of hate my job. Like, I fucked my neighbor. My husband's being a dick. Like, I have too many kids. I'm pregnant again. I don't know who the dad is, but I'm just going to say it's my husband's. Like, you don't chit chat over these. You do like, is delivery on the way? What time? Confirmed. Like, that's kind of more the vibe. And then in 1876, Alexander Graham Bell invented the first telephone, and then major cities began installing the telephone system. So now we can start doing business all across the country. I like that that's your version of chit. What else do you talk about on the phone? But any host, they start to talk all over the country. And again, these are not products you have in your home unless you're super rich. You don't have this in your home. This is something that businesses have at their businesses for doing business person things. You know what I mean? So American companies realized I can conduct business across the US and especially rich people because rich people love power. So they're going to keep trying to get power. So when they realized, like, oh my God, I'm a rich guy in New York, I can become a rich guy that does business all over this whole freaking country, they got really excited for that. So they didn't have a button for I hope this telegram finds you well. I'm sure there's records of that. Someone typed that out. Alexander Graham Bell was a trash man. Eugenics, anybody? I don't know that much about him, but this is what I mean that I say every stream could be 20 hours long because there's literally so much to talk about everyone. There's just so much 1800 gossip for us to get through. Not that eugenics is gossip, but you get what I'm saying, talking shit about people. So, the government is a very, very hands off. This is called laissez faire. It literally means lazy hands. It's French, the original lazy people. No, I'm just kidding. Wait, who followed me? Xenon974, thank you. Sorry, I got distracted. Anyway, so government is very, very hands off when it comes to regulation. Again, it seems like the government is very hands on when it comes to patents and, railroad creation. Find that interesting. Um, so most immigrants to the United States during the Gilded Age were impoverished. So these are the people that are very vulnerable, would be recent immigrants and small children. And although some public schools existed, did not have compulsory attendance laws, and they would not be like required to go to school until the 1930s. So to make ends meet, many poor families had little choice but to have children work in factories, mills, or even coal mines. Child labor was extremely common, and child laborers were paid less than adults and imbued few or no safety regulations. So this is where the government is laissez-faire. When it comes to child labor and like, immigrants being exploited, they're like, we don't give a shit. Thanks. We're going to focus on building more railroads, but I love that for you. So where was I? Child labor was very, very common and was partially influenced because of the tradition of children working on farms. So I think a lot of people are like, how could the parents do this? The parents had been working on farms as small children. Like a lot of the parents had been working on a farm and then moved to the city to work in a factory. So it's like, yeah, I did work and now you will do work. Like that's what this is. So it wasn't like it was scandalous for kids to be working. Um, the ability of children to operate factory machinery was seen as a credit to the simplicity of the machinery. They're like, see how good the machines are? Even a 5-year-old can do it. And the children were often injured at work. And then eventually critics started to become more vocal as the era went on. But the prevailing viewpoint was that the government should avoid trying to regulate businesses, including employment practices. Laissez-faire economics would limit the political will to restrict child labor. So it was very, very, very common to see children working. In 1900, 18% of American workers, I cannot stop burping tonight. 18% of American workers were under the age of 16, and businesses liked to hire children because they would work for very little pay. In many cases, kids were not paid at all, but worked for their room and board. So a lot of impoverished parents that could not afford to house or feed their children, they'd be like, I'll send you here, then you can work, and then they will feed and house you. So to me, this is sometimes the parents even got paid, which is tricky to me. I don't love that. And when they did earn wages, it was often 10 to 20% of what an adult would earn for the same job. So, why did they hire children? Some businesses hired children because they were cheap, worked hard, and could do jobs that adults couldn't do. In some cases, businesses treated children no better than slaves. I hate that this is said because there were many children working who had also experienced slavery. Like it was not that long ago. And so these were the same people in many cases. They often kept them locked up and forced them to work long hours. In other cases, businesses felt that they were helping the children by feeding them and keeping them from starving. Who wouldn't have kids for that deal? I maybe we should bring this back. Like the birth rate is really low. So these are the kind of jobs that children would have. Cotton mills, where they worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week as doctors and spinners, selling newspapers, shoe shining. Coal mines, where children worked as trappers who opened the doors for the coal carts, removing impurities from coals and assisting the miners. So they're like the B team, I guess. Um, Randa Heather, thank you for following. Um, where was I? Factories where children worked in light manufacturing and completed tasks that required small hands. This was the other thing is they like to hire kids because kids have tiny little hands and they will crawl into the machines. Because like you're an adult, you're not fitting in that machine. But if you're 4, you can crawl up that thing like a little monkey and jump inside with your little tiny toddler hands and play with shit and fix shit when little tiny pieces go missing. So they liked them because they would crawl inside the machines because they're little tiny toddlers. Children love Black Lung also. So fun. Imagine being a child doing labor and being called the beach. That was kind of fucked up. I probably shouldn't have said that. Kind of a genius marketing strategy. If a kid tried to sell me something, I'd fold. So it is today, but you have to remember people didn't give a shit about kids back then. Like people would literally like a kid would be walking and an adult would just like kick them. Like kids had nothing. Kids were dirt. Like those underdeveloped motor skills. I also crawl into machines, but no one pays me. You fixed your sound. I fixed everything. I can handle feedback, okay? I can handle it. I'm fine. Sorry I'm late. It's okay. We forgive you. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is in here taking it. I wanted to add that, but it was just like I could not add one more thing, and I just could not open that because I could go down that rabbit hole again too. So anyway, they also worked in workshops or they worked for home businesses. This one seems the easiest to me personally. And then they worked on farms, which like kids have been working on farms forever. The majority of child labor was on farms, but they're two-thirds is not 99%, you know? So this is what I was talking about, that every slide is actually 1,000 slides. So here's some pics of child labor. For those of you on TikTok, you have to come to Twitch to see the pictures. It's the first link in my link tree. You have to make an account, but it's free and you don't have to pay anything. Thanks, love you. Kids still work on farms. It's wild. Yes, very true. Why would you hire people when you could just have kids? Exactly. It was an investment. That's why men wanted wives to have a lot of kids because they were like, bitch, I have a fucking farm to run. Like, you are head of HR. Like, let's get to recruiting. Like, let's pop out some fucking babies and run this farm. So, this young worker here in Polk is 9, worked at a canning company. He told the photographer, I ain't very fast, only about 5 boxes a day. They pay about 5 cents a box. That is in 1911. Ralph is a young cutter in the canning factory, was photographed with a badly cut finger. The photographer, his name's Lewis Hine, found several children there had cuts and on their had cut fingers, and even adults said they could not help cutting themselves on the job. Again, 1911. Sorry, I can't breathe ever. Here, this kid has man boss energy. I'll fucking say that. Like, I am big enough to recognize that this is not an employee, this is a boss, you know? So, this is 7-year-old Tommy Newman. He works late nights at a clothing store on Pennsylvania Avenue in DC. After 9 p.m., he would demonstrate the ideal necktie form. His father told Hine that he's the youngest demonstrator in America, and he's been doing it for years, from San Francisco to New York, staying in a place about a month at a time. This kid is a celebrity. This is the boss baby. Like, obviously, he shouldn't have to be working, but like a tie salesman? Okay. Did they do like a where is he now? Because I'd love to know. I'm impressed. He slayed a little. 7-year-old on the night shift. Why are these pictures kind of marvelous? Mason Ramsey of his time. Here are the Newsies in 1912. They stayed out late at night to try and sell their extras. No one's going to buy a newspaper at night, especially a daily newspaper. No wonder people used to smoke. Exactly. Here is some girls working in a house. This one seems like kind of a vibe to me. I think I could handle this. They're 11 and 13. They hand stitch lace to make cuffs. They make about $1 a week, working some nights as late as 8 p.m. Okay, Katie and Angeline obviously fucked up. You had to child labor, but I think everyone can recognize that, like, Katie and Angeline have it best out of any of these fucking pictures we just looked at. Like, let's be so serious, Katie and Angeline. Like, y'all are sitting. I know it's like you're comparing bad to bad, but like, I feel like now we can look at them and be like, that's fucked up. But I feel like the other kids probably saw these photos and were like, fuck you, bitch. Like, fuck you. Fuck you and your fucking inside lace job. Like, I'm here in a fucking coal mine and you're complaining. Like, that's what I mean when I say they were definitely the best off of the child laborers. And I wonder if there was that dynamic there. Like, if some kids were like, fuck you to the kids that had better jobs, well, they probably wouldn't be meeting them. Where would they meet? Not like they have time off. Yeah, never mind. I don't think that maybe neighbors, though. No, I think they might meet because you would know the other kids around. You know, you would know. You would know neighbors. It had to have happened. I know the machine kids were pissed. Because I would be very angry. Oh my God, it's already been almost an hour. We're not even halfway through the slides. Let's focus. So here's some more pics of child laborers getting their asses handed to them at work. You can see the little machines that they're on. They look displeased. I would also be. This is the coal mine kids. They look awful. They look like they came out of a coal mine. This is a really famous photo. So you see what I mean? They're barefoot. They can get all up in these machines. Here's some more coal mine kids. This shit looks like it's from the set of a movie. This is so depressing. These poor children. Here's some kids working on a farm. These bags are literally the size of them. And also, I think that they're barefoot. I will say I'm glad that they have hats on. I'm glad that they at least have a little sun protection. And then this photo became really famous, and people are like, wow, that's terrible that she works there. But really, the only reason people cared about this photo is because they thought she looked really cute and pretty. So that just shows that pretty privilege can change the world. Because when they saw like the little boys in the coal mine, they were like, I don't give a fuck. They're little boys and they have dirt on them. But then people saw her, they were like, oh my God, but she's in a dress and her hair is nice. That's so sad. You know what I mean? So you can always, like, when you're thinking about history, you can do what's right or you can do what's effective as a journalist. Misogyny, even back then. That photo may be in my city. The girls in dresses make me worried knowing how those machines can tug something. Exactly. Little boys belong in a coal mine. Don't say that. So yeah, these photos with the boys, people didn't care as much, I don't think. Here's another photo. Some of these kids are little. Look how tiny that little baby is. So itty bitty. Here's a kid that got injured. Lots of kids got injured. Here's a kid with one leg because he got injured. Lots of injuries. These kids are in the coal mines. They have these little lights. They're smoking. I think if you are being exploited as a child laborer, you can smoke. I think that's fine. I have no problem with that, honestly. It's wild that people really thought kids should be in mines. I mean, to be fair, they were doing a good job. Kids in dirt is not heart wrenching to them. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, they did not give a fuck about kids. People did not care about kids back then. Here's again, sometimes it'd be older kids, there's some younger kids, again with the no shoes. This is depressing. Here's them like in the little mine, I guess. And then here's a young shrimp picker named Manuel, 1912. This is, oh, I already showed you this photo, sorry. But in Dunbar, Louisiana, Hein met an 8-year-old oyster shucker named Rosie. He discovered she was working steadily from 3 a.m. to 5 p.m. And she told him that the baby of the family will start shucking as soon as she can hold a knife. And oyster shucking is hard as fuck. One time my parents made me do it. It was really annoying and I cut my hands a lot. 9-year-old Minnie Thomas showed off the average size of a sardine knife she works with. She earns $2 a day in the packing room, often working busy late nights. 3 a.m. The government being hands off when it comes to workers, but then suddenly being hands on when it comes to protecting patents. Knives for babies. If we went through an energy crisis, I doubt they wouldn't bring this back. No, they would. They already are. So here's a graph to show you the world manufacturing output. You can see the United States went up super dramatically. The UK is kind of our competitor, which is crazy to think about because they have so much more land than them. This I found really interesting. In 1870, 50% of the workforce was working in agriculture. And then in 1910, it went down to only 30% because so many more people were working in manufacturing, commerce, mainly manufacturing and commerce were the big increases. But yeah, I just thought that that was a very big jump. I hope we mentioned the recent kids who work an overnight shift at a slaughterhouse. Oh, we are not going to talk about that, but I saw that on the news the other night. That is very disturbing. Here's some other graphs to kind of explain things during this time. So cities grew really dramatically, and a lot of that was because A, people were moving from rural areas to urban areas, but one was also immigration. If you look in the 1860s, 70s, and 80s, we really had a lot of northern and western immigration, northern and western Europe immigration. In the 1880s and 1890s, we had a lot of southern and eastern Europe. So northern and western Europe, I guess northern would be like the UK, and then western would be like France, I guess. And then southern, it was a lot of people from like Greece and Italy and places like that. I'm not a geography expert, but lots of people from Europe. I'm just going to lump Europeans together. So this is the urban growth. So if you look, like Boston went from 250,000 people, and then just 30 years later, it went up to 560,000. The one that's craziest to me is Seattle went from 1,000 people to 200,000 people. Another big one is Los Angeles, 5,000 to 102,000. Chicago, 298,000 to 1.6 million people. New York, 1.4 million to 3.4. Philadelphia got smaller. What happened there? But anyway, you can see cities are just fucking exploding. So think about all that's going to happen. Wait, where's San Francisco? Yeah, San Francisco went from 149,000 to 342,000. So cities are exploding, partially because people are moving from rural areas and partially because immigrants are coming in. Imagine how bad traffic would be. Imagine how hard it would be to find housing. Imagine how hard it would be to like do like anything with the population growing this dramatically. Here's another graph that really shows the same thing, but I wanted to look at this other side of it. So in 1860, we had 25 million people living in rural areas and we had 6 million in urban. By 1920, we have 51 million people in rural areas and 54 million in urban areas. So we went from a country where most people lived on farms, most people lived in rural areas, to a country where more than half of people live within major cities. Thank God cars didn't exist yet and America had walkable cities. Yes. The cars, like a couple cars existed, but they really weren't widespread until like the 1930s. Um, Again, percentage living in rural versus urban throughout the years. It used to be everyone's rural, now most people are urban. And then here, immigration to the United States, you can see has a massive, massive jump in the like late 1800s, early 1900s. Tons of immigrants are coming into the United States. This is pretty shocking to me as well. The difference in New York from 1850 to 1927, having like literally no skyscrapers. And then if you look, you have like bridges, you have all these giant buildings, you have all these giant docks. It's like just literally blown up in a relatively short matter of time, which is just bananas. So, social and economic shifts. The industrialization brought rapid urbanization. Urbanization is people moving to cities and cities getting bigger. The increasing factory business created job opportunities, and people began to flock from rural farm areas to large urban locations. And minorities and immigrants added to these numbers. Factory jobs were the only jobs many immigrants could get, and as more came to the cities to work, the larger urbanization process began. So in 1870, there were only really two American cities with populations of more than 500,000 people, and by 1900, there were six. Three of these, Chicago, New York, and Philly, had over 1 million inhabitants, and over 40%, and then later even got over 50% of people were living in cities. But these large city populations also caused crime rates to rise. People are crowded and they don't have what they need, they're going to do crime. Disease to spread rapidly. Not only did urbanization cause cities to grow in population, it also caused cities to grow in building size. So skyscrapers were being built, and the idea of mass transit began to take root. Mass transit systems allowed people to commute to work from further distances. Suburbs were beginning to form as upper class families began to move out of the crowded cities. So, ethnic neighborhoods. I hated typing this out. I don't like the way it sounds. But anyway, this is the time period where we start to see things like Little Italy, Chinatown, these neighborhoods where immigrants are primarily all from the same place. Hygiene was not a thing at this time. Most people didn't have running water. Yeah. So, in coastal cities where immigrants arrived, urban areas where ethnic groups settled in large numbers, a different pattern prevailed, like these little kind of non English speaking areas. Because think about when there's tons of immigrants coming in, a lot of them, especially from Southern Europe, were like young men alone. Like it wasn't like a lot of times a whole family going together. You're going to move to a place where people speak the same language as you. Like that's just logical. Um, so here's another graph to show you immigration, super, super high immigration levels in this country at this time. So cities faced a new problem. The cities are growing so fast that the government can't keep up. They didn't have enough hospitals, police, public schools, fire departments, street cleaning, or garbage collection services. So cities were quite literally a mess. So here is the problem: overcrowding and slums. As workers started to move into cities, middle class people moved away from these industrial areas. So medium sized homes were turned into tenements, which was low cost rental housing that barely meets minimum living requirements. So a house that was for one family gets turned into four apartments for four families. So whole families were crowded into single rooms or apartments, often without heat or lighting, and many families would share one bathroom. So here you can see, I think this is four apartments. You can see living room, kitchen, bedroom, living room, kitchen, bedroom. So the whole family shares one bedroom. And then this other one has two bedrooms and the kitchen and living room. Again, two bedrooms in the kitchen and living room. And then there is two toilets for this entire floor to share. And so keep in mind how many kids people had back then. I know you might think this is plenty of space. Yeah, for one person, it's plenty of space. In one of these, you would have 10 people. That's a lot of fucking people. Some apartments in NYC still have a communal bathroom. Yes, that's very disturbing. I hate that for you all. If I had to share a single bedroom with my family, then I might go to the mines. Exactly. People also were building these shacks like on the sides of buildings and alleyways and living there. Here's a picture. You can see the tenement housing, very, very crowded. Here, so this is what I mean. It's crowded as shit. Look how many people are in here. It's a lot of people. And then here is kind of a spreadsheet so you can see how really tiny they are and how, not a spreadsheet, like a blueprint. That's what I meant to say. Here's another one. Here's another, you can see lots of clothing, very crowded, very small windows, lots of people on each balcony. Here's another one. You can see just like very dirty, very low ceilings, very crowded. Here's another one. This one was actually in trouble because it had too many people sleeping in one room. Thinking about how they would have more kids, well, they had a lot of kids. So you think about it, getting pregnant had to be happening. That's spooky. Yeah, well, also they didn't have birth control back then. So that's tough. For those of you on TikTok Live to see Twitch stuff, like you have to go on Twitch to see the pictures. It's the first link in my link tree. Here is another one. You can see lots of people. Again, a lot of like young single men would share these as well, especially a lot of immigrants who came over alone. This one is the worst to me. This picture is the worst because there's literally like 8 people sleeping in this room. It looks like you don't even have space to like fucking sneeze to yourself. Muckraker's just taking pictures of poor people and going, look how gross this is, guys. Can you imagine having sensory issues and there's always people just a couple feet from you? I don't think people with sensory issues lived very long during this time. I don't think this time was really like hospitable to them because I agree. So, in the 1800s, most cities also did not have sewer systems. This is a newer photo than the 1800s. You can tell by the garbage, sorry. Raw sewage often flowed into the streets. It would contaminate drinking water. So lots of people died from diseases of contaminated water. And the lack of ventilation in tenement homes contributed to the spread of disease. So think about being in that tenement home, just no airflow, no AC, no fans, just breathing in everybody's farts. That's all it is. The US, come here and follow the American dream. Also, the US. That might have to be the chat of the night. I'm going to be honest with you. We're going to talk about muckrakers next week. Next week, we're going to talk about like progressivism and all that. It's really going to be a vibe. So, traffic congestion. Another part of this problem, the streets were not designed to handle the population that they had. Look how fucking, you see how often I'm burping? Look how crowded this street is. This street is a fucking disaster zone. So think about like, so I live in Miami, and this is honestly a problem that we're having because so many New Yorkers have moved here. There's been like 80,000 people that have had a New York license that switched to a Florida license. Not all of them are Miami, but still. But Miami is so fucking full that traffic is so bad because it just like, we're just not prepared to have all of these people. Like, it's quite literally horrifying. Other thing is vast differences in wealth. This is another thing that we are facing today. Not this part, but rich people often lived around the corner from poor neighborhoods. Because keep in mind, like now, the Lower East Side, New York, everything there is expensive. But a lot of these immigrant communities were in these areas, not far away. Because think about our population now is bigger, so we're more spread out. So rich city dwellers would display their wealth with massively lavish parties, clothes, jewelry, and luxury items. And they also built walls and hired guards to protect themselves from the poor people. So this created a lot of tension and made it more difficult to endure unsafe and unsanitary conditions because you were like, these people are literally living so good and you're right there and you're hiring a fucking guard. I'd be a robber. So here's Andrew Carnegie's home, who's like a famous, he's steel, like he made steel. Here is Andrew Carnegie's home compared to tenement homes that were, I believe, in the same city. Like, yeah, you're going to be mad. Like walking past that, you're going to be annoyed. If you visit NYC, you can tour some preserved tenement buildings. It's a great museum. I have never wanted to go to anything more in my entire life. I want to go there. Batman's parents kind of had it coming. Yeah. I don't know that much about Batman, but I've seen it. So LA. So here's some of their other houses. Charles M. Schwab Mansion on Riverside Drive. Um, this is William K. Vanderbilt's mansion. So, like, imagine this is your boss and you're living in that other house and you have to walk past this. Like, okay. My town's library is a Carnegie library. Carnegie ended up giving a lot of his money away and convincing a lot of other people to do the same thing. Another Cornelius Vanderbilt mansion, largest single family home in New York City at the time it was built. And then here's another one, the Siemens Mansion in Brooklyn. So these are very ostentatious. I think it is just a very trippy. Why isn't my computer loading? I think it's so interesting that so many of the issues that these people are facing are exactly the fucking same as the issues that we're facing. You know what I mean? Like, this is one thing I love about history, is just how it makes me feel connected to people of the past. I don't know why this meme isn't loading, but it was Will Smith, like the pain meme, where it's like the tweet that says pain and he's like, looks like he's been crying. It was that one. But yeah, I just think it's like we're all just interconnected, of like we're experiencing so many of the same issues. And it seems like, oh, that was so long ago, like life was so different, but it really wasn't. The people are having the same things. Like, their bosses have way better houses than them. They're frustrated about the lack of advancement opportunities that they have at work. Like, we're just all going through kind of the same problems, which is crazy to think about. Natalie, it's Ali. Thank you for following. I love how American architecture is just log cabins, and these people have castles better than the White House. So, there was also a lot of political corruption during this time and political machines. So, a political machine is an organization usually controlled by a leader or a boss. Here, let me turn my computer on. Do not disturb. Usually controlled by a leader or a boss. The boss would get citizens to vote for its candidates on elections day. You might be like, Miss Redacted, how the fuck does that work? Basically, the way this works is because the cities were an entire mess, the boss would give jobs and services to immigrants and poor people. So they'd either be like, we'll clean up the trash, we'll pay for a doctor, you can work at my factory, you can live here. They would like give them something. And then on election day, they would tell them who to vote for. Also, a lot of my students would always ask, like, I thought immigrants couldn't vote. This is before like we had as much of a complicated system around citizenship and voting, and these are also local elections, so it's just like a very chaotic, like unregulated thing. It's just kind of like, you live here, vote. Um, the candidate that is elected gives city, so basically the boss tells people who to vote for. They're like, vote for my friend Craig. Craig gets elected, and then Craig is like, hey, boss, I'm going to give you all of these city contracts so you get to build shit and make money and do all this stuff. Then the political machine makes even more money. They can expand to other neighborhoods and do the exact same thing and just get even stronger. So, what's a city contract? How do people make money off of it? Basically, the government pays for stuff like trash removal, maintaining roads, whatever. So, the government hires a company. So, if your friend is in the government, they're going to hire your company, and then you make money and you give some money to your friend who's in the government. And then it's just like a corruption thing, pretty much. I don't trust Craig. That sounds like the mafia. Yeah, very much vibes. Boss Tweed flashbacks. So this is actually, I designed this in Google Slides. This cartoon is about Boss Tweed. So this is New Jersey, this is New York, and you can see on the cuff link it says William Tweed. He was a political boss, and it says under the thumb, they're under his thumb, he controls New York, and it says the boss. Well, what are you going to do about it? So, again, how the political machine works. The boss provides those services. The boss tells immigrants and poor residents to vote in favor. That person gets elected and gives city contracts to the political machine, and the political machine gets more powerful. So, political corruption has been around basically forever. Like, it might look a little bit different now, but it's really the same thing as people who run businesses giving money to people in the government, and then them just like working together to make each other even more money. So, voter fraud was very, very, very common. Men would be disguised multiple times and vote for the desired candidate to go vote more than one time. And the counting of votes was hardly scrutinized. We also did not have the secret ballot. The secret ballot means that, like, when you go vote, it's in private. Is the chat broken? Or is just like no one talking? Like, you're all just like so enthralled with what I'm saying? Maybe. Anyway, so now when you vote, it's in private and like no one's allowed to see it. But back then, we're listening. No, I literally felt like I was like, wow, they're like, this is the way it feels when your class is like fucking on you. But anyway, please say there's a cartoon about fat trust in Congress, obviously. So anyway, sorry for distracting you. The secret ballot basically means that you get to vote in private. Back then, you would be voting and your boss would be like standing behind you and be like, hey, who are you voting for? So that's why it was really easy to control everybody. It's like when everyone's eating at dinner. Yeah, exactly. So now this secret ballot is universal, but back then it was not. So because of all of this, keep in mind, like, all of this meaning everything we've talked about today, like the natural resources, the government like the government investment in business, basically, the political corruption, all of that. we start to see the rise of monopolies. During the Gilded Age, many businessmen made large sums of money by gaining control of an entire industry like railroads or banking. The practice of controlling an entire industry is known as having a monopoly over the industry. Four men in particular created monopolies and gained vast wealth. This is J.P. Morgan, Cornelius Vanderbilt, John D. Rockefeller, and Andrew Carnegie. These are the rich guys. We already talked about this. Anyway, J.P. Morgan was John Pierpont Morgan. He was born in 1837. He dominated banking and finance during the Gilded Age. During the financial panic of '07, he helped save the American economy, leading a bailout of failing banks. He financed several multinational corporations, including U.S. Steel and General Electric. His power of the economy made some of the government nervous. As a result, Congress passed the Federal Reserve Act in 1913, which created America's first banking system, the Federal Reserve. This guy was so rich that the government was like, wait, it's really awkward that he's richer than us. Like, we need to do something about that. Even wealthier than J.P. Morgan, though, was John D. Rockefeller. He was America's first billionaire and the founder of Standard Oil. While Morgan was born into wealth, Rockefeller started out at the bottom as a clerk. After the Civil War, Rockefeller realized that oil, he was like the original tech bro. He realized that oil would be the power of industrialized America, so he bought up every oil company he could and created a monopoly. This process of buying companies to eliminate the competition is known as horizontal integration. Like, you're controlling, like, horizontal, like you're a line, like they have to go through you because you control everything. So you set the prices because you're the only person that they can buy it from. So to crush his competitors, he would create a shortage of the railroad tank cars that transported oil. He'd then buy up all the barrels on the market so his competitors would have no place to store or ship their oil. And then he bought up all the available chemicals that were necessary to refine oil. So Rockefeller even had Standard Oil men communicate in code. The company nickname was Club, and John D. Rockefeller was referred to as Chowder. He was so secretive and ruthless that few people knew what he even sounded like. He walled himself off, and the people who did know to recognize him that he had no self-doubts. Once he made up his mind he was going to acquire your refinery, you might as well sell it because it was going to be a part of Standard Oil. Next week, we're going to talk about Ida Tarbell. She like investigated him and then he got in trouble and like the government was like, you can't fucking do that. And it was like a whole thing. I'm confident Taylor Swift can shatter all of Rockefeller's records, get this woman in the industry. Love the men who built America. So petty. I'm obsessed. Love all the callbacks I'm getting to my old history class. Exactly. Do you see what I mean? Where like when you learn something in history class and then when you learn it with like opinions, you're like, holy shit, that's so different than what I thought about it. Um, the day of combination is here to stay, he once declared. Individualism is gone, never to return. At this time, oil was an important commodity in the United States, and it was used as a light source and later to power automobiles. He even sold byproducts to create tar, petroleum jelly, paint, and chewing gum. I love how Taylor Swift is connected to Standard Oil via her Rhode Island house. Taylor Swift is a real estate hoarder. That bitch needs to sell her houses. Also, my phone is about to die. I'm really sorry to the TikTok people, but if you want to hang out, you have to come to Twitch because my phone's on 5%. So, Cornelius Vanderbilt, he was a business guy. He did railroads and shipping. He was born in 1794. He was an early investor into some of the first American railroads. He got in on the industry of the ground floor. In 1849, people started flocking to the West for gold, so he took advantage of that. He set up a accessory transit company, which many people used to travel to the West Coast. He built railroads Vanderbilt's railroads needed steel, as did growing cities. So Andrew Carnegie, who was an immigrant from Scotland, this is like one of the OG American dream guys. An immigrant from Scotland realized this need and became one of the richest people in history through Carnegie Steel Company. He immigrated to Pittsburgh with his parents when he was 12, and he started with doing 12-hour days as a cotton mill. And he later found work as a telegraph operator for railroads and worked his way up. And then in industries as worked his way up after investing in industries like railroads, oil, and steel. America's industrialization led Carnegie Steel Company to become one of the most successful companies in the world, and he utilized vertical integration. Vertical integration is when you own all the parts of production. So you own the materials, you own the truck that takes the materials to the factory, you own the factory, you own the machines in the factory, you own the railroad that takes it to the store, and you own the store. That means like you don't have to pay anybody else. You get to keep all of the money. So, where was I? It was because he was in charge of the process from the first step to the last step. So he isn't paying anyone else. It's all his. So JP Morgan would end up buying Carnegie Steel and transform it into US Steel Corporation. And then Carnegie became a philanthropy guy and he gave lots of money away and he invested into education and he wrote a book called The Gospel of Wealth about how you should give your money away because it's good for the country and how we need to fund the arts. So like eat the rich, and I'm glad that he came to that conclusion without having to get eaten. Good for him. So here's vertical and horizontal integration. I kind of already explained that, and business is boring. Side note about this, we're going to learn more about the creation of public schools next week, but I wanted to talk about this with the factories. So factory owners required workers that were punctual, docile, and sober. That was the other thing. A lot of people were drinking all day. And they needed people that would do what their managers told them. Sitting in a classroom with a teacher is good training for that. So early industrialists were very instrumental in creating universal education. John Rockefeller poured $129 million into funding schools across the nation. And he didn't exactly conceal his interest and motive in being involved in this process. He said, I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers. That quote is absolutely horrifying to me. And business advisor to Rockefeller, Frederick T. Gates, was a prominent member of the General Education Board. He said, we shall not try and make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. We have not to raise them up from among them authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statements of whom we have ample supply. So they're basically saying, like, we want these people to fucking work. Like, we don't want them to be at school to learn shit. We want them to be at school to learn how to be good workers. So there are even reports that Rockefeller and the industrial giant Andrew Carnegie played a significant role to influence the educational agenda to direct what was taught in school as well. I mean, if you want sober workers, maybe make your labor conditions better. Exactly. If you want me to be sober at work, it needs to be a positive environment. I think that's reasonable. So let's fucking talk about political cartoons. This is important because most people that were being oppressed by these issues could not read, either because they were illiterate or because they did not speak English, sometimes both. So they started using political cartoons to tell people the news because that was the only way that you could like spread information widely. So here's some important political cartoons. I love this one. This is about monopolies. So I don't know if you can tell, but this little door, can you see my mouse? I don't think so. This little door on like the top left corner is closed and it says people's entrance. This is a painting of Congress. So the people, regular people, they have no entrance into Congress. But over to the right, it kind of got cut off, but it says entrance for monopolists. Those businessmen, they can be in Congress. And the reason they're so fat is because one, they're greedy. This is just like art symbolism, not talking about people like IRL. They're so big because they're greedy and because they're powerful. So if you notice, the congressmen sitting in front are like itty bitty because they don't have any power, but the like it says Steel Beam Trust, Standard Oil Trust, Copper Trust. These monopolists, they have all the power and they're sitting in the like overseeing them. Fatty power, exactly. So here's another one. So you can see the workers are all being like holding up the monopolist. And then on these little things, it says like linen workers, $11 a week, clothes workers, $9 a week, iron workers, $7 a week, lumber workers, $6 a week. And then they're holding up the country, like they're holding up everything. Here, we already kind of looked at this one. This is about the political machines where it's like the thumb down over New York. School literacy, boo. Brainwash, yes. This is in my A Push DBQ I teach. Exactly, because these were the important ones of the day. So here's again about the political machine. So this is the party boss who's passing out special privilege and all these things. And in a political cartoon, if someone is big, that means that they're like powerful. So that's why all the little people are like, gimme, 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 gimme. Here's another one, machine power. Here's the votes running up all to the machine, building up a pyramid because the machines just got bigger and bigger and bigger. Cartoonists got real edgy at times, and I'm here for it. Yeah, exactly. This is another good one. This is about Standard Oil. So remember we said Standard Oil, that was John D. Rockefeller's. It was often represented by an octopus, and you see how like it's grabbing the government, it's grabbing other refineries, it's grabbing workers. Like the octopus is huge and powerful and just grabbing everything. Here's one of Andrew Carnegie. So here is he's standing on top, or no, this isn't Andrew Carnegie. This is Rockefeller. Sorry, I thought this was something else. He's standing on the Standard Oil. He's a king, and then his crown is made of the railroads because the railroads helped him build his empire. Here's another one about Standard Oil. This one is about Vanderbilt. So you can see he's controlling all of these little trains. And then I accidentally put that one in there twice. Here's one of my favorite political cartoons ever. This is about Rockefeller and Standard Oil. So you can see here's Rockefeller, and look how tiny like the elected officials are. Like the government people are so itty baby. And then the like smoke coming off of the factories is like coming off of the congressional buildings. I feel like we need to get back to this. I feel like I hope one day people are looking at memes about politics. That's my dream. And then here's another one about Standard Oil. This is really a hate Standard Oil one. Um, Night, I guess. And again, octopus going out grabbing all of these things. Congress, other businesses, transportation, everything. I just tweeted, why are politicians so interested in banning books, controlling curriculum? I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. John D. Rockefeller, the Beyonce of rich capitalists. My God, this is making me sad. Good. History is sad. Anyway, one horrifying thing to come out of this era is company towns. So in remote locations such as railroad construction sites, oh my God, my ring is stuck in my hair. Lumber camps, turpentine camps, or coal mines, jobs existed very far away from established towns. So, as a solution, the employer sometimes developed a company town where an individual company owned all of the buildings and businesses. So the remoteness and lack of transportation prevented workers from leaving for other jobs or to buy from other independent merchants. So in some cases, companies paid employees with scrip that was only good at company stores. Without external competition, housing costs and groceries in company towns could become exorbitant, and the workers built up large debts that they were required to pay before leaving. Company towns often housed laborers in fenced in or guarded areas with the excuse that they were protecting the laborers from traveling salesmen. You work here and you have to buy food here and you live here. So here's example of company script. So you would get your paycheck and it would just be this. Niche 88, thank you for following. Also, I have to turn the TikTok off. I'm very about to die. But anyway, you can see it's literally not money. Imagine getting a job and they hold you hostage. Why aren't there like only two real companies? Like two companies own most of the brands. Yes, that is true. You got to do the Battle of Blair Mountain if you haven't already. Oh, I don't know what that is. I need to look it up. I think Gary, Indiana was built around a factory in that day. I'm working at Pullman this summer. You're not going to like what's about to come next. Maybe keep an eye out for this. So spooky alert, not what's about to come next. The one after that, we'll talk about Pullman. Spooky alert. I can't actually read this article because I don't want to pay for Bloomberg News, but Amazon is creating factory towns that they believe will lift the working class. They says plentiful new jobs at higher wages in places with cheaper housing sounds like a solution to inequality. So, remember how I said everything is just the same all the time? That's going to happen again. Once we start getting paid in Amazon gift cards, it's done. We are done. Blair Mountain was a coal strike where bombs were dropped by the government on strikers. Oh, I have heard of this. Plaid Wolf, thank you for subscribing with Prime. I'm a history major and I like to do my homework during this stream. Aw, I love that. Oh, wait, this does let me scroll. Oh, hell yeah. Make that a little bit bigger. It does let me scroll. I'll go through and thank the subscribers later. We love. Okay, so anyway, Pullman, Illinois, an ambitious social experiment that failed. In 1884, George Pullman completed the construction of a manufacturing complex in a town on 4,000 acres of land south of Chicago for the Pullman Palace Car Company, which built luxury railroad sleeping cars. He intended for his planned community to help prevent labor unrest, attract a skilled workforce, and increase employee productivity by providing a clean, orderly environment away from the vice-filled big city. Again, people were drinking. The town featured more than 1,000 homes, public buildings, and parks. Residents had yards, indoor plumbing, gas, and daily trash removal, rare amenities for the industrial worker of that era. So, like, they were recruiting hard as fuck. The community won national accolades and by 1983 had 12,000 residents. However, some who lived there were chafed under Pullman's iron rule. Workers allowed only to rent their homes could be evicted on short notice and faced random inspections by officials. Saloons and town meetings were banned, and every Pullman and were banned, and Pullman had final say on which books the library stocked and what performances the theater put on. So, in response to an economic downturn in 1894, Pullman cut jobs and wages while refusing to reduce rents, sparking a violent workers' strike that ended only after federal troops were sent in. We'll be learning a lot more in detail about the labor movement next week. We're going to do not a part two because they're different, but part two just chronologically. It's a lot more complicated than this, but yeah. And then here is a cartoon about that. I feel this man right here. Like, this is how I feel. And then you can see it says capitalism, monopoly, plutocracy, wage slavery, and Pullman is big and it's just squeezing pennies out of the worker. Pullman, Bezos, they are twins. They are brothers, actually. So what are we going to learn about next week? We're going to learn about the labor movement and progressive reforms. We are all that, man. It's a national historic park now. It has a national monument, but it got upgraded last year. Me after tax season. It's giving Department of Education and teachers. So next week, we're going to learn about the labor movement and progressive reforms. Burped again. Love that. I'm going to go ahead and end the TikTok now. If you want to keep hanging out, come to Twitch. It's the first link in my link tree. We're about to play a trivia game talking about what we learned. So bye. Love you. Okay. So, what game do we want to do? Jungle, because next week we're going to learn about an important book called The Jungle. So that's what we're doing. I picked it for you. But any hoops, I will go ahead and hit continue so you can do the game. If you would like to play the game, I'm going to put a link in the chat right now. You can do it in a new tab if you're on a computer. If you're on your phone, I'm not going to make you download anything. I don't want your email address. It's free. It's just for funsies. You don't have to make an account, none of the sort. You don't even have to download the app if you don't want to. Go to join.nearpod.com and then enter the code 4FBP3. 4FBP3. It will ask you to enter your name. We will see your name. You can do a fun little joke, but don't do anything racist. Thanks. And then you get to pick a little character. And then we're going to play a little trivia game, and your little characters are going to run up a mountain, and it's going to be so cute. You do not have to use your real name. Please actually don't if you don't want to. I'm going to go ahead and thank my lovely subscribers now that I learned how to use this platform while you guys are getting on here. Crippleback followed, Later Skaters followed, Samantha Babantha followed, Plaid Wolf resubscribed. We love Emmy Beans, Hopper Shop, Ryan Candrell, Ghostly something, Niche 88, Silver Star 884, Lil Hoops 93, Tub Star, Madly It's Allie, Jackie Johns, Sereno Kami, Tyree Zus, Sunflower Trash Can, Katie Otter, Zoe T, Mango Slushy, Thickest Cow, Miss Andreas resubscribed for 4 months. We love, thank you for subscribing. Rosie Cushion, Random Heather, Grace 2319, BYC 1212, Xenon 974, Ambrosie Live, Snoozy G33, Nunez L97, 3D Girly Clown and Fuck, Honey Drippers, Frog Sessa, I Like Lemons resubscribed for 6 months. Fox Wicked, Katrina, a Twitch account 12, Wags gifted that lovely subscription. Anna Black, Dark Anon, R. Fisher, Wags followed, Zero Jack 14 followed, Highguard Heart, Princess Bunny, Nannyware, PC Cupcake 420, Grocery Store Pete has been subscribed for 8 months. Marie Jo Young subscribed with Prime. FMD followed. Fem Lizzie resubscribed for 4 months. AJ Jones followed. Shell Barrel 5 followed. Thank you, thank you. I think that was everybody that was here. Shout out to the person who gifted me a sub 2 weeks ago. Thank you to the person who gifted Garden 8 Octopus a sub. I'll give you guys a couple more seconds to join the game. Here, let me put the directions up again. I probably should have had that up the whole time. Sorry. And then let me paste the link again. There you go. If you want to open it in a new tab. This is very good. All right. Let's go ahead and get into it. It's been at 69 for a second now. I like that. Your A-push knowledge might save you. What did we learn about today? I need to go live on TikTok more. I literally get like 200 followers every time I do it. I don't know who's watching TikTok lives. Oh, TikTok shows more videos of creators when they are on live. Interesting. You should do a history of Dr. Pepper. Honestly, I should. Ghostly photos came here from TikTok. So this is usually the pipeline. It's usually TikTok to YouTube to Twitch. Some people straight go TikTok to Twitch, especially if they were on a live. They're rewarding you, exactly. I should start going live all the time for like 5 minutes while I'm at work. I'm going to start doing that. I also came from the TikTok live. We love to see it. Why were time zones created? I downloaded Twitch for you. Thank you. That is such an honor because I hate downloading shit. Like at my job, we just got a new thing, and I was like, I'm not putting another app on my computer. They're like, you have to. And I was like, well, I'm not. And here we are. What was the government philosophy around business regulation? Fully made an account on Twitch because I didn't want to be left out. Thanks. Discovered you can pause on Twitch. I didn't know that. I never watch Twitch. I just talk. I'm also really proud of my timing tonight because I've noticed after an hour and a half, a lot of people start to leave. I try and stick to like, people love 90-minute comedies. I love watching 90-minute comedy movies, so I try and stick to that. And I was worried because we had a lot to cover tonight, but I felt like it wasn't rushed, except a little bit at some parts at the end. We got to cover everything I wanted to talk about. The flow was good. But again, I have literally taught this. I need to give myself credit that I've taught this like 20 times. So that's why this one was just like, you know, on the money. Because when someone asked for this, I was like, I can body the shit out of that. Labor movement, that one I have to learn more because I don't know a ton beyond like the state propaganda I had to teach my students, which some of it was really good. We'll talk about a lot of it that was really good, but there's a lot of stuff that I don't know that I want to like get into. Where were most immigrants moving to the US from? Are any of my coworkers here? Don't say where we work, but if you're here, say hi. I know some of you watch sometimes. I'm just curious if anyone's here. I may be choosing answers based on chaos. Valid. Very valid. Outside of the US. Please read out the correct answers. Oh, it'll show you on the screen. Most immigrants came from Europe. That's why I like Nearpod, because even if you don't feel like joining the game, you can still kind of pretend to play, which I love half-assing something. What were some issues cities were facing during this time? Also, I had to make the game very quickly, so I'm sorry if there's any mistakes. There's more than one right answer to this one. You know what I should start doing? I should start doing TikTok live from my iPad instead of my phone because the battery lasts way longer. That is so smart. Never let libs of TikTok know where you work at. Don't summon them. Sadly, I'm in Cali. I always miss your lessons. Wish I could make it more. I'm sorry. They're on YouTube. The YouTube's as good as I can get. Also wondering, would you all be into it if I started streaming earlier? I'm thinking about making a career change, so my schedule would be a little different. So do you like stream at 7:30? Because I feel like 7:30 is a good time. But if you were like, no, I want it at 5:30, I'm very much down to do that. I listen to you for my hot girl mental health walks. I'd love to hang out earlier. Interesting. Maybe I'll do a poll about it. 7:30. If anything, put it later. I can't handle later, unfortunately, because I get off work and then I watch live. That's what I was thinking is by 7:30, people are off work and home because if you leave work at 5 and you have an hour commute, which I know a lot of us do, you have like time to kind of chill and then settle in. I don't get out of work till 6:30, the worst. Why were political cartoons popular? 7:30 because that's 4:30. I don't sleep till 2 a.m., so whenever. I think I'll keep 7:30. 7 p.m. That's another good one because usually I get home I like to have an hour before and I get home between 5:30 and 6:30. So sometimes when I get home at 6:30, 7's just pushing it, you know? I'm listening while I work. What is an example of exploitation in company towns? This was a good day. I feel like I got my shit together. Tech wise, our AV is looking good. The lighting is good. The things are clear. Thank you for sticking with me during these terrible technology months. I really should have done something about this sooner. It wasn't, things are never nearly as hard as you think they're going to be. You know what I mean? Actually, this platform was hard. Anyway, nice job to Trash Sunsets, Gas Station Roller, Myrrh, Tia, Fox, A Child Labor Parking Lot, 3D Girly, Ari, Nicole, Mad Mads, Tanya Harding, Shoelace, Sammy B, Dee Dee, Emma, Silly Goose, Paige, Caitlin, Jim and Lil, Mr. Monopoly's Monocule, Katie, Janician, Bailey Jaden, Conquistador, Ginny will work for weed, and I will scroll through the rest. That was the top 25. Our Toddler in the Machines. Asparagus, Dino Nugget, History Watcher, a Trader Joe's parking lot. We love, we love, we love. The tech was fantastic. We honestly popped off. Thank you to Glitterbeard. Glitterbeard is a streamer. He reached out to me. He was on the podcast as well, and he explicitly was like, I'd love to help you. I can help you with your tech stuff. He helped me get set up on here. So thank you so much for that. I got my cords. I got all the things. So yeah, and now it appears my chat robot is working, which it did not before, which is great. So thank you so much for being here. Next week, we're going to talk about the labor movement. It's going to be a great time. This was a great class. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to go eat my pizza and my broccolinis. This is so much fun. My boyfriend overheard and joined in. Let me let me get like a hello from the men in the chat because I was realizing that on TikTok it shows men versus women like percentages, and I'm usually between 89 to 93% women. Um, but on Twitch, I don't think I see that. So, men, let me hear it from the men. So, people think that I hate men, which I do, but I don't hate men as a concept. I fucking love men. And the reason that I hate men so much is because men have so much potential to be great. It doesn't make a difference. Welcome, Taylor. Be a gay man here. Men have so much potential to be great, and so many men are wasting all of their fucking potential. So that's why I'm always mad at y'all because like you're not doing as good as you could and I know how good you can be. So like I'm just being hard on you because I know you can do better. So like I love men. I think men are the coolest, truly. Like not to be a pick me, but like I like talking with men. I like let's talk about things about men that I like, which is not that many. Some stuff that I don't want to talk about because it's sexual and one day an employer could see this, obviously. Two, fuck, I had one. What was it? Men are straightforward. A lot of times men are more straightforward than women. I like that. Um, there has to be something else. No. Anyway, I really like, you can tell when a man does something to help someone that he loves and he's very proud of himself. I like when they do that little thing. Um, I have autism. It really makes men easier to talk to. That list is as long as the CVS receipt. I love men. Also me. Give me a second. I'll make up a reason. All the girlies confused by that, but I was like, they just say what they mean. Like they're not playing a game with you. They're just stupid. They don't notice when you're gross and haven't washed your hair. I like that kind of ignorance. Anyway, this was really fun. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to end this. The recording will be on YouTube. I will see you next week. Government officials explaining economy. First rule of money is never use your own. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next week. Thank you for subscribing. I am working on figuring out how to set up my donation goal so that, oh, I didn't like that this did that. I'm working on setting up my donation goal so that I will be able to buy a better computer so that we will just even be like more elevated. But now that this is a lot better, I'm feeling better about the situation. So, yeah, thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next week.